Welcome to Test, ladies and gentlemen. All right, man, how you guys doing out there today? I appreciate you guys very much for stopping by. So, I do have a kind of like a match that Wesley So and Daniel Naroditsky played on chess.com. So, you know, these are some pretty strong players. These are some 3,000 plus guys. So, I'm going to do my absolute best to break this game down for you so that you kind of understand what's going on. So, all of my people in the Philippines, I will say, Maraming salamat. Post on Inga King my video. I appreciate you guys very much for stopping by. Anybody else from around the world, but if you're ready to go, let's take a look and see what we got for this game, son. All right, so we got D4. We got knight to F6, so we start off with an Indian game. We do see the move C4, and then we have G6. And these are going to be like some of the strongest ways that you will see the game being played. You know, you have some queen gambit decline type stuff. You even have some Benoni type stuff, but G6 and E6 are definitely going to be some of the strongest ways you can play the game. So we do have what is known as the King's Indian defense. We do see knight to C3. We got bishop G7. We got E4 getting the really broad center. You know, basically if black sits around and does nothing, I mean, white might even be so ambitious to go the move F4. Push E5 and your knight is out of there. And I mean, white is just doing way too well. So usually you see black making sure that they kind of hold white up a little bit. So that is why we see the move D6. You don't want the move E5 to come without some kind of consequence. We do see knight to F3. We got castles by black. We see bishop to E2. Now, kind of getting into this opening a little bit. Kind of like three of the main ideas that black has is to push the move E5 and try to get white to fix their pawn structure. And then they can go like knight A6 or knight B to D7, plop a knight onto C5 and try to just heavily hit this pawn. And also, you see the move F5 being played. Generally, what you see from black is some type of knight maneuver, like one of these right here, just to clear the way for this F5 expansion, usually after the move E5, just to start to break down what white has established in the center. So bishop E2 is kind of trying to not only maybe move knight to D2 to double protect E4, but it's trying to make the maneuver knight to H5 really undesirable for black to be playing. And also, to get white castled if they choose to do so. So we do see knight to A6, kind of one of the ideas I was telling you guys about a minute ago. We got bishop to G5, queen goes to E8. Like I said, the major idea that black is wanting to try to employ is the move E5. If you play E5 now, you would be pretty much self-pinning yourself. And it kind of, damages what you're trying to do. So we see the queen stepping out of the way. We do see the move H3. We got the move E5. Like I said, D5. Now, like I said, white has fixed their pawn structure. So one of black's ideas is to try to attack this really vulnerable, under-defended E4 pawn. So we do see knight to C5. And then we see the maneuver knight down to D2. This is a pretty important move to put in there because right now white has definitely made sure that they have protected their E4 pawn and your knight is somewhat nicely placed to just continue to pressure that. So you don't really want B4 to come and kick your knight away because you pretty much did everything for nothing. So that is what we see A5 for. We do see the move B3. Now it was possible to go A3 here and just go A3, B4 and try to kick this knight. Sometimes you are worried about the move A4 kind of clamping down, but not so much in this position. But Wesley So decides to slow play it. We do see B3, and then after bishop to D7, we see A3. We do see C6, and this was one of the other ideas. Like I said before, white has a really, really strong center, and black is kind of hurting for space just a little bit. So they pretty much have C6 or F5 to try to break white structure down. So C6 is one of the breaks in the position. We do see the move B4. And B4 is actually the novelty of the game. It's kind of interesting because, I mean, we've seen B3 and then A3 be played like way in the past at some point. So, I mean, you're kind of setting up B4 push. So I'm not understanding how that is a novelty, but it is. So we do see, like I said, C6, we got the move B4. Pawn takes B4, pawn takes B4. We got the rook takes A1. And you see the bar kind of go up. I'm going to explain that in a second. Black has allowed themselves to get in kind of a tricky position. We do see queen taking A1, and then we have knight going back to A6. And I will pose the question to you. There is a really nice in-between kind of move that we see in this position by Wesley So. You want to pause the video and try to guess that move. Go ahead and do so. Okay, so generally when you see, like when you push b4 and it's kind of like flung out there on its own and you got knight going back to a6 from c5, you know, your first thought is to protect this pawn. Now, I will say this. If you said queen to b2, this would be an alternative move that it wouldn't be a blunder. It just, like, the position is actually really screaming for really kind of two moves in a position. So if you said bishop takes f6, I will accept that as well. But the move that we saw Wesley So play was pawn takes c6. It does just allow, it is an in-between move that does hit this bishop right here. So you're kind of going like so and like so. So you're kind of, you have oomph behind this in-between move. And so, you know, black has the ability to try to go knight takes b4, but I mean, you're going to be winning your material, you know, one way or another. So it is a really nice in-between move. Also, if the bishop does capture here, you are looking at this mighty nice fork. So you definitely don't want to go down that path. So we just see Danya go ahead and go back bishop to c8. We see pawn taking b7. Like I said, you were in a position where you were going to get a fork going on. You know, you do have the chance as white to grab a pawn. So if really nothing else is kind of going on, you are a pawn to the good. So we do see bishop taking b7. We got queen now protecting the pawn because now we don't really have any more in-between moves. So we kind of need to do something about this pawn. Plus, this is a completely passed pawn, and it doesn't have any black pawns to contest it. So this is definitely our most prized pawn in our position. We do see, like I said, queen b2. We got queen sliding over to a8. And we do see castles, which it might look kind of strange. You're like, wait a minute, bro. Okay, hold on. Let me do a count. Knight takes, bishop takes, queen takes. Yes, but the major thing that you have to be paying attention to is that after white castles, which is what we see, after all of that stuff, they do have the ability to add some pressure with rook to a1. So if we saw, let's say we saw knight taking e4, because you're like, man, I did the count. I got all these pieces. Knight taking, you got knight taking, then you got bishop taking, and then you have rook to a1. And you have a really big problem because your queen is now overloaded. The queen is trying to protect this e4 pawn, bishop, but it's also trying to protect the knight on a6. And one of them is going to go down swinging. Even if you try to do something like so, you would be looking at knight taking, queen taking, and then you have just won yourself an entire piece. Everything is pretty much winning in that variation. So after we see castles, we do see Danya recognizing that threat. He goes back to c7, but white are able to make a move just in time, and it is rook to a1 hitting the queen. And after the queen moves, we do see knight to d5 just plugging everything up. So you see that Wesley So was able to play, make a threat and then play a move just in the nick of time. So like I said, knight d5 plugs everything up and we are good to go. The knight takes d5. We got pawn taking d5, and everything is pretty solid. You know, white is up an entire pawn. It is a completely passed pawn over here. Everything pretty much on black side is somewhat stopped, but can be parried. We do see the move f6 hitting this bishop. We got bishop e3, and then we do finally, after 23 moves, we do see that pawn break. Now, it did come in 2 moves, but we did get a tempo on this bishop, so it's pretty much kind of like playing f5 straight up. But you see the idea takes many different forms. But like I said, it is very easy to parry. We do see the move f3, and now black has used both of their pawn breaks, this c6 and this f5 pawn break. So there really isn't any other way for black to start to try to chip away at what white has. And pretty much this structure right here is going to stand the test of time. We do see king sliding over to h8. We got the move b5 because passed pawns must be what? Pushed. Exactly. We do see bishop taking d5. And you kind of can understand the logic behind it. Because you're trying to get like a lot of pawns in the center, which we do see Danya get. Pawn takes, we got knight taking, the bishop just simply backs up. We got knight to f4, that bishop simply backs up, and then you do see d5. So you see that black has, you know, kind of desperado sacrificed their piece. They do kind of have a little bit of pawns rolling, but this bishop always has the ability to come to d4 in case of something like e4, and it's just going to trade for this bishop, which is actually a very good defender of black's position. So it is not super great. We do see b6, push the pawn. We got d4, and then we have b7. And what we have accomplished as white is we have managed to basically tie this queen down to pretty much these squares right here. You have to make sure that you coordinate with this rook to make sure that we don't have any promotions on this square. You can't go over here. And so, like I said, you have to maintain connection with this square. Before, when you had the pawn here, you know, black had a little bit more movability. But when you are up a piece, what you're trying to kind of do is you're trying to, number one, trade down if you can. And then also you're trying to put your opponent in a very passive position if you can. Try to get rid of their counterplay. We do see queen to c7, one of the squares. Like I said, we got the rook over to c1, queen to b8. And then we have a really, really nice idea, which is bishop to a6. And rook to c8 is coming, whether you like it or not. But if you're Danya, you don't like it. We got queen going to d6. We got the rook up to c6. Like I said, no matter what. We got the move e4. Rook takes f8 with check. Bishop takes f8. And then the idea that I told you guys about before, which is bishop takes d4. But actually, after we see bishop taking f8, this is the position that Daniel Naroditsky resigns the game. You are basically seeing a bishop takes d4 with check coming up, and you really kind of don't want to move your bishop in the way because you were just going to lose it for like absolutely no reason. And then the check comes here and everything is everything. So what you probably would see would be king to g8, but you do see you would see bishop to c4 with check. The knight would come up and block, and you would be able to now promote your pawn. And you see that white has too many queens on the board, homie. But you really don't want to trade anything because you don't want to get rid of your queen. But it's going to come forcefully. You would probably see h5 and then queen taking d6, bishop taking d6, and then bishop taking e6 with check. And, I mean, you can see what this looks like, bro. 4 pieces to 1 piece. It's just not where you want it to be at, man. So, Malak, I see Wesley So in this one. This position is, like I said, very interesting looking. If it was to get to that point, but I mean, Danya having a little bit of class is like, bro, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and resign once we hit here because this actually looks like still a little bit normal. I mean, you got 4 pieces against 3. So, I mean, you can have a little bit of dignity after you resign right here. So don't let your opponent just literally have like 5 pieces and you have 0, bro. Don't do that, man. But anyways, I appreciate everybody very much for stopping by, and I'm going to see you guys next time.